As people would expect, one of the principal areas of our collections, and probably has the most material, is the First World War. We were a small county regiment in 1914 with 2 regular, a reserve and 2 territorial battalions of part-timers, probably about 5,000 men. But by the end of the First World War, we estimate something like 45,000 soldiers, officers and soldiers had passed through the ranks of the border regiment, and sadly some 7,000 lost their lives in the conflict. So the material that we have is varied. There's everything from medals, uniforms, documents, photos and so forth. But so many of these have a personal connection, and a particular chap who I focused on many years ago, and he's visited a number of schools with me over the years as we've talked about the First World War, is a wonderful guy called David Johnston. David Johnston was a painter and decorator. He was 31 years old in 1914 and lived at 53 Granville Road in Carlisle, just off Wigton Road, or between Wigton and Newtown Road. He was a widower by 1914. His wife had passed away a couple of years before, and he lived with his 2 children, son and a daughter, with the parents on Granville Road. And in 1914, obviously he had a lot of responsibilities as a single parent and probably a breadwinner for the household, but he decided to enlist, and he enlisted in the Border Regiment's Pals Battalion, better known as the Lonsdales. And in September 1914, we have his service book and details, so we know his history very well. And he trained with his battalion on Carlisle Racecourse, so they're very, very well recorded, and went with it to France in November 1915. And on the 1st of July 1916, after 7 months service on the Somme, they took part in the opening day of the major battle, and he was mortally wounded and sadly died of his wounds 10 days later on the 10th of July 1916. Amongst the material that we have in the collection relating to him are the medals, his 3 service medals that were received by, would have been his parents after the war, and they're on display in the main gallery. But the other thing we have is a hymn book, a form of prayer for open air services produced by SPCK, and marking the page of the hymn O God, Our Help in Ages Past, which is often sung at funerals, and opening it at a particular page is a pressed Flanders poppy. Whether it's one that he picked, we like to think it was one that he picked when he was over there in France, because the poppies do grow if you go over there at the right time of year in the fields. And this was kept by the family along with his service book, which would have been in the pocket of his uniform. We have a couple of photographs of him, the last postcard he sent home, field service postcard, and we have his Omega watch, his army issue watch, and that they all came back to the family, and these were passed on to us with the medals. So we've got him as part of our own history. And he's the classic case of someone, as I say, of his age, with his responsibilities. He didn't have to enlist. He probably wouldn't even have been conscripted because of his parental and family responsibilities. But he went, and obviously the grandparents, like many other families who'd lost sons, husbands, brothers, whatever, the grandparents were left to bring up the 2 children. And the rest, as they say, is history. But it's a wonderful story about him, and the fact we have the photographs and these personal things make it all very, very special indeed. And to cap it all, of course, everybody knows that the poppy became the symbol, and still is, of the Poppy Fund, the Hague Fund, and every November, of course, we buy our poppies to aid those who've suffered as a result of conflict, ex-servicemen and their families.